Oh, I can leave the meeting because I'm offended, apparently. Okay, no, I missed it. I have done a webinar before, but I don't know how to share my PowerPoint while also looking at the next PowerPoint. So you have to bear with me. I know, so I'm gonna have to share a screen with you eventually, I believe.
Okay.
Yes, sounds good.
You want to try real quick while you're sitting there?
Yeah, let me grab it up here.
I see some names I know. Maggie, good morning. She's always on video. I love that.
I know, that is nice. Good to see you, Maggie. Thanks for being
Good
on.
to see you guys too.
If anyone else dares to join us on video, we love to be able to interact, and our speakers love to not speak to dark squares. So just an encouragement. If you're somewhere where you can, we'd love to invite you to do that.
Hey, Jeff, what do you see? Do you just see the
I see the seasonal affective disorder, SAD, when winter gets you down.
Okay, all right. I think I got it figured out.
Cool.
Perfect.
Can you stop the share for a minute?
Yeah.
I'm really going to push your level of.
Bear with me here. Wait.
All
right, there we go.
Perfect.
Hey. Well, it's 10:35. Let's get started.
Cool. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for jumping on. I'm Jeff Milber with NFM Lending. If you don't know who I am super excited about our speaker today, Dr. David Simonsen. I've actually worked with him personally, and he brought us some great information the last time around. And we were sitting around as a team talking about the holidays and how quickly it came upon us. But then there's all those other things that you think about during the holidays. Meeting up with family. Sometimes it can be good. Sometimes it can be stressful. Anyone get a little stressed during the holidays? I certainly do. Yeah, right. There you go. So I think it was just a great opportunity to bring Dr. Simonsen back to talk to you all about this time where a lot of us do get stressed out and we're dealing with a lot of things. And especially in Seattle with the weather turning, I don't know if any of you guys have been struggling with the rain, but good Lord, when I get up and it looks like I'm supposed to be going to bed any minute now, it really kind of sucks. Makes the day a lot harder to trudge through. So I'm super excited to have Mr. Simonsen, Dr. Simonsen on here. Thank you so much, David, for coming on. I really appreciate you and excited to hear what you have to say for us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Maggie, I was noticing your background of Christmas decorations, it looks like.
Those are my fall decorations. I'm having a Friendsgiving this Saturday and nobody's letting me put up my Christmas stuff until after that.
I was gonna give you a bad time about having Christmas stuff already before Thanksgiving, but
if it were up to me, it would be full-blown Christmas by now. My son he's 5 years old and he's pressing on me to get my stuff out. But yeah, my friends are holding me back until at least Saturday this week.
Maybe they can help you at Friendsgiving decorate a little bit.
Yeah.
Put them to work. Okay, so now I got to share my slideshow here. Bear with me.
Give us a little background on you first.
Oh, okay. So a little bit about me. So I've been in practice for about 21 years, working with couples, families, individuals, talking about lots of different relationship type challenge things. I'm married 26 years. I have 7 kids, 1 son, 6 daughters. And people usually think, oh, he's a Mormon or he's Catholic, and I'm neither, surprisingly. So I just have lots of kids. My 6th kid was born with Down syndrome, and then we adopted a kid from Poland that has Down syndrome. So in total, it's 7 kids. And my son, actually, I think, Jeff, I had emailed you a month ago or so. My son actually graduated in May with an electrical engineering degree, and then decided just to kind of sit back and, see what was out there. And I'm just like, oh my word, get a job. What are you doing? Get a job. And so finally he got a job up in Mukilteo at a place that works with Boeing.
Yay.
So I'm happy that he's currently working and living up in Mukilteo. Yeah, so and I live in Olympia, and my office is here in West Olympia. I don't know, is that kind of what everyone wanted? And yeah. I'm open, and so I'm open.
Oops.
You muted yourself.
I did it.
Mute. Are we good?
Sorry about that, Dave. That was my fault.
Okay.
We're getting some feedback on the screen, so I muted everyone and I didn't pay attention to that. I was going to mute you, so I apologize. My bad.
So I'm open to answer almost any question. We're going to talk about seasonal affective disorder, then we're going to talk about relationships and holidays. And I think there's a place to put in questions. And so I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of go through my presentation. And then at the end of the presentation, I'll answer questions. And so if you have a question 5 minutes in, just please put it in and I'll answer it. I'll make sure I get to it at the end of the presentation. Okay, now, oh my goodness. Screen. Okay, hold on. Okay, so what do you see the PowerPoint now? Hold on.
There you go. Now we see it.
Okay.
That opening screen that we talked about earlier is on now.
Okay. Did it change?
Now we see the actual PowerPoint, but it's not in presentation mode.
Dang it. Okay, I'll just go with this then. Okay, so we're going to talk about seasonal affective disorder. So a lot of times in my career, I had heard a lot about SAD is what it's mostly known for, and there's another SAD. It's called social anxiety disorder, and so these two often get mixed up in conversations. And so I want to be very specific. We're talking about seasonal affective disorder, and I think the challenge with seasonal affective disorder is that it mirrors basic depression. There's a lot of the symptoms that are the same. And so people get confused because they think, oh, I'm depressed, when in real terms, you're actually not depressed, you have seasonal affective disorder. Now that could just be, I'm talking clinically, and usually people are talking like layman's terms. And so when a person probably doesn't care whether they have SAD or whether they have depression, they just know that they're feeling not feeling great. So seasonal affective disorder, it's a type of winter depression that affects 500,000 people every year. And this is going to be more directed in the US. I'm sure it affects many more if we think of it internationally. It's believed, similar to depression, to be caused by an imbalance of chemicals. In the winter, there's usually a decrease in natural light, as Jeff was referring to earlier. And, we can argue about the benefits of daylight saving time or if we should get rid of it. I think most people agree we probably should get rid of it. Just people don't have the political will, for whatever reason, is not there to get rid of it. But I think most people agree that we should get rid of it. And so the lack of sunlight causes a reduction in serotonin, and serotonin is usually known. Most people know serotonin as the happy hormone. It's the thing that we want more of. And if you're on any kind of antidepressant, that's what a lot of the antidepressants are made to do, is to kind of trick your brain into thinking that you have more serotonin than you actually do. And actually what happens a lot of times with medications related to mood disorders of depression is that it blocks the serotonin, it kills receptors essentially. And so it makes your brain think you have more serotonin than you do. And that's where this negative side effects come in: weight loss, weight gain, cotton mouth, lack of libido, and things like that. And so essentially for SAD, it's this lack of sunlight causes a reduction in the serotonin and an increase in melatonin, and then it produces the symptoms associated with SAD. Now, the symptoms are, again, like I said earlier, they're going to mirror a lot of depression symptoms. And so sleeping problems, that's a depression symptom as well. Not being able to stay awake, disturbed, uneasy sleep, oversleeping, not feeling rested when you do get enough sleep. And as Jeff referred to, like waking up and thinking, wait, what time is it? It's still dark out, when it's actually like, 5 in the morning or 6 in the morning. Oversleeping. The anergia, there's actually a word. It's the clinical word. In my world, it's the clinical word for just having no energy. And so a lot of times when people have depression and sad, they just want to sit on the couch and veg, or they just want to be on a screen, or they just want to play video games. They just don't want to do much. And you say, hey, we should go out and do this thing. And they typically will say, I just don't have the energy to do it. I'm so tired. A lot of times when people are struggling with sad or depression, they want to take, and they do take lots of naps throughout the day. And the challenge, I think the challenge with depression or with sad is there's this often a sense of guilt that people have, because they know like, oh, I need to be doing something. But then their body and the chemicals in their brain are just kind of keeping them at such low energy that they don't go do that thing. And so then they start beating themselves up, and they get kind of in this this negative shame cycle that's often internal, that's not externalized anywhere. So there's anhedonia is another clinical word for loss of interest in things. And that could be kind of the complaint I often hear is people that love to hike, for example. I hate hiking, so I can't relate to people that love to hike. Apologize for you who love to hike. I just don't understand you. So gardening is another one that people like to do, or biking, or things like that, where if given the opportunity to do those things, they just don't want to do those things because they're not interested in them anymore. And so again, the clinical term for that's called anhedonia, and that's another classic sign of depression in people, and it's another sign that you may have sad. And the biggest thing about sad when we're talking about it is that this shows up in end of October, beginning of November. And so a lot of people that have sad will recognize, like have conversations in August or even September, like, oh man, I'm dreading the upcoming holiday season, not because of relationships, because of their mood changing. And so some of you may have had conversations with people that make those kind of comments. Chances are they probably have sad. And maybe it's undiagnosed. And they just think, I'm just going to live with it and power through the next 4 months. And then, come out into spring, about April, and I'll start feeling good again. So there's social problems that happen. People just don't want to be around people. There's nothing more irritating to someone that's depressed or that's sad than being around somebody who's all bubbly and cheery. Hey, what's going on? Hey, let's have a great time. Hey. And so if you have a friend that's struggling with depression or sad and they're not around you, chances are you create a worse feeling for them. And so it's good to be sensitive to your friends if you know that they struggle with seasonal affective disorder. Avoiding social situations. Now is the time that there's all these parties happening, right? Friendsgiving over at Maggie's house, and then other places, people are going to be getting together. When you're struggling with sad or depression, you don't want to. You just want to avoid that because people don't want to be fake generally. And then they just they have anhedonia. They're just not interested in it anymore during this season. There's mood changes, there's extreme mood swings. With depression, one of the symptoms of depression is irritability. And so that could be a symptom of sad, is like you find that you're more irritable to the person, to people. And generally it's to your significant other because you're around them most of the time. That's just what happens, right? You're just around your significant other and they're doing things that irritate you. And normally you can bite your tongue, build that scar tissue up on your tongue by biting it. but your seasonal affective disorder is really getting the best of you. And so you get snappy or a little spicy with them. There's an increase in PMS symptoms in women, which doesn't help with mood. And so that's potentially a challenge as well. There's diet changes. The biggest one is overeating. I think that a lot of times with depression, there's weight gain, weight loss. But one of the things I hear consistently as I meet with people to talk about depression is the fixation on sugar and carbs. And a lot of times people do emotional eating because it helps them feel good. And during the winter months, when you have everything bundled up on you, just eating some chips or ice cream or whatever it is, just helps you emotionally feel better. But then it ruins your body because you're just filling it with a lot of junk food. There's a loss of libido. So typically that's a sign of depression. Also just loss of interest in sex. There's an increase in anxiety. And this one's interesting, this last one, because this is not connected to depression, this weakened immune system. Now, I can't tell you exactly why that is. And as I was doing research, that was a consistent thing that kept coming up. And perhaps there's some kind of correlation to the fact that it's during the winter season. And so maybe chances are people are going to get some type of cold more often. But I thought it was interesting to add in there. So there's a variety of ways to cope with seasonal affective disorder. One of the biggest things is light. Like today, I was looking out before we got on the call, and I think I saw in the back of if you look out Jeff's window, it's sunny out right now. And so one of the most important things to get, if you have a diagnosis of seasonal affective disorder, is to get light. The challenge with that, though, is then it's cold outside. And so you're not going to be wanting to wear shorts and a tank top when it's 35 degrees out. And so that's the challenge, right? So for those I don't know if any of you is everyone here local? There's no one like from Yakima or Spokane on this call. I mean, Yakima and Spokane is going to get a lot of light, but it's going to be frigid weather, right? And so therein lies the challenge. Like when you want to get sun, you can't because you're bundled up because it's so cold outside. So allowing natural light as much as possible to shine through your open windows and doors. Exercising daily is important outdoors if possible. So again, you can get that sunlight on your skin. And then counseling is another way. The challenge with exercising daily is that part of, if you go back and look at the anhedonia and the anergia, it creates this combination of things that make you not really want to exercise daily. You have loss of energy and you're just not interested in it. And so that's one of the hardest things in coping with seasonal affective disorder or depression, is that you just have no interest in doing things. And so then again, that's where the shame cycle, this internal shame cycle shows up, because you start telling yourself, oh, what's wrong with you? Why can't you get up and do these things? And then it just kind of stays and repeats in your brain. And that's why counseling is super important. So if you're at work, rearranging workspace, work near a window, setting up bright lights in your work area is important. Keeping a daily log could be helpful. If some of you journal, it could be an important thing for you. You may not know if you have seasonal affective disorder. And so keeping a journal could be important in kind of logging how you're feeling and what the weather's like. And if there starts to be a correlation to the weather being cloudy and gloomy, and then your mood being kind of gloomy, that's a good sign that you probably are struggling with seasonal affective disorder. But you're not going to know that unless you keep track of it. If you don't keep track of it, you're going to think, oh, maybe I have it, or, well, I was feeling bad on this day. It's just better to keep track if you're wondering if it's something that you're struggling with. So avoid staying up late. It disrupts sleep schedule and your biological clock. And again, with daylight saving time and the lights, it being dark, I mean, that kind of discombobulates your system already. And so it's important to get sleep, to have a good, consistent sleep schedule. And then be aware of cold outside temperatures and dress to conserve energy and warmth. And we talked a little bit about this earlier. So SAD is more common in northern geographic regions like New England, and I guess we're Pacific Northwest. So we're probably more likely to have it than someone, let's say if you live in Arizona, where there's lots of sun, or Florida where there's lots of sun. It's more common in women than in men. The most difficult months for SAD are January and February. And I think that's because it starts in October, really November, December. And I think a lot of people, at least my experience, a lot of people kind of white knuckle it, but then they get tired of white knuckling it and, oh, it's almost over, but then it's not almost over because January and February are pretty gloomy as well. And so that's the height of season, that's the height of the gloominess, I suppose. And then seasonal affective disorder is really kicking in and it's not being dealt with. And then by the time a lot of people think, okay, I'll finally deal with it, it's March and April and more sun is out, spring's here, everyone's happy wearing pastel colored clothes, and then your seasonal affective disorder is over because the sun's out shining more and it's warmer weather. So as many as 6 of every 100 people in the United States may have SAD. And so let's talk about treatment options for SAD. So the biggest one, the most impactful one is going to be light therapy. And someone had asked me a couple days ago when we were talking about SAD, like what's the best light to get? I can't tell you the best light to get, but I can tell you that it should have at least 10,000 lumens on it. Now I didn't do my research to know where the word lumens came from, but I guess lumens relates to brightness, I think. So if you can go on Amazon and do a light therapy lamp, and then several will come up, and you want to make sure that it has 10,000 lumens in there. And I can't tell you which one's going to be the ideal one. I know that I have, when I was going into offices to meet with people, I saw these therapy lamps, but they would have them at their feet or they'd have them at the desk next to them. So it's like you can have them anywhere as long as it's the light is getting onto your skin. So light therapy is something that can be helpful for people. Talk therapy can be helpful. So all the studies show that if you're struggling from any kind of depression or seasonal affective disorder, the best thing to do is talk therapy plus something else. And I tend to think that talk therapy can work for depression, but I tend to think it works for situational depression. So maybe you have a loved one that passed away, or you had to move, or you lost a job, or you had a relationship breakup. Those tend to be situational issues that create sadness, and in my opinion, don't often create clinical depression. And so I think talk therapy is ideal for those kinds of situations. I think if you're struggling with clinical depression or actual seasonal affective disorder, talk therapy plus something else is going to be ideal. And so it could be talk therapy plus light therapy, talk therapy plus medications, or talk therapy plus TMS, which I'll talk about in a minute. So medications can be useful, but just medications don't work for everyone. There's a lot of time there's side effects that people don't like, or people have previous history of being addicted to pills, and so they just don't want to have anything to do with pills, and so they don't want to take medications. But medications can be really useful. And if you think you have seasonal affective disorder, because there's a short window of time that it impacts you, talking to your doctor sooner than later is super important for something like SAD, and doing it probably in August or September. So then you can, I mean, I know we're kind of late on that, but having that conversation with your doctor in August or September, or even October, would be more beneficial if you know that you have SAD and it's something that happens every year, just so you can be prepared for it. So for depression, there's a variety of ways to treat it. Like I said, there's talk therapy, medication. There's shock therapy. Shock therapy still goes on in the world. It's pretty invasive. You have to go to a hospital, get knocked out, and then you have to do it a couple times, and it impacts you systemically, right? Medications impact you systemically. It doesn't just deal with one part of your brain. And so there's this other treatment called TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation. Now, this is a newer therapy that was introduced in 2000. The FDA approved it in 2008. Insurance companies just started paying for it in 2016. And insurance companies only pay for a diagnosis of depression with TMS. And what it essentially does, it uses magnetic resonance on your prefrontal cortex, which increases blood flow, which is believed to increase serotonin naturally. And the reason that I'm talking about, I know so much about, is because I do it in my office, but it's my shameless plug, but none of you live near me, so you couldn't take advantage of it anyways. So I'm just putting it out there for you guys to know about as a treatment option if you're struggling, if you or someone you know struggling with depression. It's a really great option if you don't want to do medication, because it puts about 50% of people in remission from depression, but it doesn't use medication. So you don't often hear about it because pharmaceutical companies don't want people to do it, because it doesn't use medication. There's my somewhat conspiratorial take on why not many people hear about it. So TMS, it's a great option. So let's talk about relationships and holidays. Let me look at the questions first before we move on to this. Okay, so I know I get sad, so I put all daylight bulbs in my house, warm bulbs only for lamps at nighttime. Okay, that's good.
Is there a special light bulb, or it just needs to be 10,000 lumens?
I'm assuming, so Daisy in Tacoma said that she puts in daylight bulbs, so maybe she can say something about it. I would bet that there are special light bulbs. I haven't done enough research. I haven't done enough research to know if there's special light bulbs, but I would imagine there are, that you could have at your house. Usually if you go on Amazon, you'll see it. It's just basically a flat panel that has the light that's like a square or rectangle, and you just plug it in, and then it pumps out the 10,000 lumens. The lights could work. So Daisy wrote the max the fixture will take. So now we're gonna have to get electricians in there to know what the max is. I'm not an electrician, so I'm not going to give you any advice on how much what the max is. Oh, it's written on the fixture. Okay, thanks, Daisy. So the next question: suggestion for helping a family member or significant other struggling with seasonal affective disorder. So this is where I think communication is going to be key, because I think a lot of times having conversations like that are difficult because it requires some vulnerability, and it requires some acknowledgement of a weakness, potentially, of what the person thinks is a weakness. I don't think seasonal affective disorder or depression are weaknesses. They're just kind of they're situations that people end up with, and they're mental health issues, just like kidney disease is an issue, or heart disease is an issue. And so a lot of times people can easily talk about kidney disease or their high blood pressure or things like that. And so I think there's a stigma around mental health issues. And so it's going to depend on how vulnerable your significant other or family member is willing to be with you. And so one way to do it is just say, hey, I've recognized, like if you're in a relationship with somebody that's struggling with seasonal affective disorder or depression, it's like, hey, I've recognized these things. And point out the things that you recognize. Do you recognize these things as well? And hopefully they're in a place where they can be vulnerable with you and say, yes, I recognize some of those things. Well, then you can't be enjoying life struggling with not going and doing the things that you used to love doing. You can't be enjoying life, dreading going to work every day or whatever. And so we need to be living our best lives, right? And so I want to help you. Let's figure this out together. I think a lot of times with sad and depression is like people try to hide it because they don't want to impact someone else. And so then they don't talk about it, and then they just get worse because they're not talking about it. I think it's one of the big reasons that veterans have such a high rate of suicide, is because they're struggling, but they don't know how to talk about it with other people. And the VA system is super messed up. And I can speak from personal experience that it is super messed up. Like referrals are slow, and et cetera, et cetera. And so if you have a system that is created to care about you, but it seems like they don't care about you, and then you can't talk to anybody about it, then the chances of suicide are going to get higher. And so talking with a significant other is super important to do, even if it's uncomfortable for you, because it's about the other person living their best life is kind of how I view it. So that's a good question. Also maintain our own activities, workout routines, social activities, so we don't get pulled into the same funk. That's the challenge, I think, in relationships, is that there's two people involved, right? And so you can really want to help somebody, but if that person doesn't want help, you can't do much about it. And so then at some point, if you get into a relationship with somebody where they're just in this bad funk and they're not willing to do anything about it, and you're trying, then you have to reevaluate the relationship that you're in. I know that sounds harsh, but you have to reevaluate, like, is this the relationship I want to be in for the next 30 years? And that's a conversation that maybe you're going to have, because I think sometimes the person that's struggling with the mood disorder, they don't think they're impacting other people. They think it's just a thing that's going on for them. But they are impacting other people because you care about them and you love them and you don't want to see them in pain. And so I think that's a conversation that you have to be able to have, whether it's with you and that significant other, or whether it's with you and a person like me. The conversation needs to be had versus you're not changing. I don't like that. I'm out of here. Peace. People do that. I don't think that's a good idea, because it just it creates like worse feelings for that person. So I think having the difficult conversation is much more important than and needed, I think. And that's why people like me exist, to help have those difficult conversations. So relationships and holidays. 11:07. Okay, we're good on time. So relationships and holidays. Holidays are really weird because they're that one time of year that people of all different kinds of beliefs and thoughts get together in a crowded room often, and have to interact with one another. And it's a challenge. I was thinking about relationships that I had to interact with growing up. And so I had this one uncle that just was always mean, and he would show up intoxicated to our Christmas dinner, my grandparents' Christmas dinner. And I always knew I got to stay out of Uncle Robert's way. And I can use his real name because he didn't sign any confidentiality agreements with me, and he'll never hear this probably. And so as I look back on that, I'm older now, and as I look back on that, I realized, he and a couple of my other uncles would pre-party at his house, basically have cocktails and, do whatever they were doing there. And then they would come to my grandparents' house. And I grew up with a family of 12, like I had 12 aunts and uncles. So there's a lot of people. So he would show up and he'd be drunk and mean to people. And I always had told myself as I got older, like, man, if I'm ever here and he's mean to me or mean to someone else, I'm going to call him out. Well, as chances had, I'd never had that opportunity. because I didn't really realize what was going on until I was like in my probably early 20s. And then I didn't go to my grandparents as much. And then he moved out of state. So I never got that chance to like, oh, let him have it. But as an adult now and as a parent, I realized, man, his kids must have hated growing up in that house because he was consistently a jerk. It's not just when he was drunk, but he was consistently a jerk. And so those are the kind of interactions you have to have at holiday events. Maybe you're going to be interacting with somebody that voted for Biden or voted for Trump, and then they're outspoken about their beliefs. And oh man, that's not going to make for a very enjoyable holiday season or a holiday conversation. And so like those are the kind of things that come up, or someone thinks there shouldn't be mask mandates, or someone thinks there should be, or I don't want to sit by you because you're not vaccinated. You know, like there's so many things that can create division. And for whatever reason, people can't shut their mouths during the holidays dinners. They just have to say something, or alcohol gets in the way. So what I suggest to people there, or oh, hold on, go. It's not going. All right, triggers. So let's talk about triggers. So there's people that are triggers, like my uncle. There's topics that are triggers, like I have suggested, political or religious. And there's places that are triggers. A lot of times, you know, during the holidays, people want to go to a church and go to mass or whatever. And there's people like, I will never step foot into a church, but then there's this struggle like, well, but my mom really wants me to, and all my aunts and uncles are there. And so then maybe they will, but then they're feeling controlled and forced. And so there's all these triggers that come up during the holiday seasons. And so the solution is, well, my solution, and then you can decide if it's a solution. The first solution is like, you have to acknowledge, do you have a trigger around certain things? And again, I've mentioned 3 things at least that I know that if there's 10 people on this call, these 3 things that I've mentioned, people are going to have strong opinions about. And that's going to, and we're all strangers essentially, and we all have these strong opinions. And so you're going to be going to these holidays and you're going to be sitting next to someone that has a very strong opinion that's different than yours. And so what are you going to do? I think you have to look at it like in the bigger picture of, I'm only here for what, 3 hours? You're only interacting with this person for 3 hours out of, let's say, the whole year. And so you have to really determine, you have to really like, and we talked a little bit about this the last time that we talked about emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence has to do with this idea that I'm going to take the high road essentially in conversations with people, right? Low, and just a quick review. Low emotional intelligence is if you're in a relationship with somebody and they say, hey, you did this thing that was hurtful. And if your response is, well, you did this thing that was hurtful to me, that's low emotional intelligence. High emotional intelligence would be, you're right, I did that thing, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. I'll try better next time. That takes such a huge amount of emotional maturity, and that's always the way to go. I'm not always successful at that, but that's the way to go. And so high emotional intelligence is going to be something that you really want to exercise during the holidays, because you are going to probably be interacting with people that have low emotional intelligence, who are saying things, I don't give an F of what they say. Who cares what they think? This is what I think, right? That's usually a low emotional intelligence person that's trying to be offensive. And so you have a choice. You can engage them in low emotional intelligence, or you can be high emotional intelligence and just bite your tongue, because it's only 3 hours of time, right? Now, unless the person is doing something illegal, unless they're hurting somebody purposefully that you care about, unless they're being outright racist or hate-filled with their speech, I think you can most time bite your tongue and just kind of overlook stuff, because all you're having to do is interact with them for 3 hours. One day you're to make your mom or dad happy, or your aunt or uncle happy. And so what we're talking about then is acceptance and boundaries, because let's say you and your partner are going to go to this event and you know there's going to be someone there that you really don't care for. And then when they get intoxicated, they drink a lot. And so maybe you need to have the conversation with your partner before this event. It's like, hey, let's decide to leave at X time. And you both agree, yes, let's leave at X time. But then if things are going good, you need to have another conversation. Yeah, let's leave at 6 unless things are going good. And if we both agree that things are going good, we'll stay longer. But if one of us thinks that things are not going well, we will decide to leave. These are pre-conversations you have to have. Because I've heard lots of times where one half of the party wants to leave, the other one doesn't, then they get into a fight, and then it just ruins the holidays. And it didn't need to be ruined because they could have just kind of pre-planned what was going to happen. That's super important. Or maybe if you know that there's going to be this unsavory relative there, you have a conversation with the party planner. Hey, I want to come. I'm struggling with so-and-so right now, but I really want to come and see everyone else. Would you be willing to seat me someplace else across the table? Or because as luck would have it, you'll probably end up having to sit next to that person that you really are annoyed with. Isn't that the way things usually happen? And so having those conversations with the party planner before would be useful. Now, again, there's a challenge even there. There's going to be challenges in all of these things, because if the party planner is a gossiper, they're going to talk. They're going to talk to people, and they're going to say, "Oh, guess what Jeff asked me? Jeff said he didn't want to sit by Susie. Can you believe that? Oh, wow. I wonder what's going on there." And so then there's gossip and there's talk that happens and things like that. And so you just have to be smart with these people that you're going to have boundary conversations with. Hopefully with your partner, they're the one that's solid with you, and they're the one that you can have like the best kind of boundary conversations with in regards to these holidays. So I think that's the solution that I have, is the acceptance and the boundaries. And we're not saying accept bad behavior. I'm saying accept that there's going to be people that you don't like to interact with, and that you're going to limit your interaction with them by boundaries or by distance. And you're going to have a good time with the people that you enjoy having a good time with. So that's my relationship holiday spiel. So there's some questions still. Let's look. Okay. Is it normal to be sleepy during summer? I was tired and no energy as soon as spring comes around. PT is not deal for me. Any other advice? Thinking PT is physical therapy. Is that it? So I would say, is it normal to be sleepy during summer? I would say no. I don't think, I mean, that's a kind of a vague question. So it's going to often depend on what else is going on in your life, right? So if you have a baby, you're going to be sleepy no matter whether it's summer or fall, winter, whatever. If you're not eating well, you're going to not be feeling great. If you're not exercising a lot, you're not going to be feeling great. If you're not, if you have restless sleep, it doesn't matter the time of year that you're in, you're going to feel sleepy. So I think that if the feeling's tired and no energy as soon as spring comes around, I mean, that's something you'd either want to have a conversation with your doctor about, or meet up with a counselor to kind of have a conversation with them. And so then they can ask questions that are going to be helpful to kind of see if there is a diagnosis for depression. And a doctor will be able to help you see if something else is going on with some blood work possibly. All right. Someone's super excited about traveling to a family reunion next month. I'm curious why. Chase, if you're interested in saying, why are you super excited about it? What were you not looking forward to? Oh,
well, it's not all sarcasm, it's both. So my family is kind of like line divided, I'd say, throughout a lot of the stuff that you were talking about. But I haven't seen any of these people in since 2013 or 2014.
Wow.
Because I've been up here, you know, like I moved away from Arizona and I came to Washington, and they're all great people and everything. It's just I haven't done like a big family gathering in a really long time, so it'll be interesting having had this conversation that we're having right now and listening to you talk. It'll be interesting to go to this and watch all of this play out. I'm not somebody who will probably get into very many like arguments with people in my family, just because I understand why they see and act the way that they do. But it will be interesting to me to watch these people who do regularly interact, and knowing that they have issues between each other is just like watching that unfold, having watched and listened to you talk and go through these slides.
Yeah, I'd say make sure your social media is locked down really good.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Erase anything controversial or just shut it down, so then no one can like, oh, look at, there's that Chase. Didn't you post about whatever last?
Oh, they don't want the smoke with me.
Oh. Okay, all right. Oh, so you're saying that you go the low emotional intelligence route then?
No, never. I would never do that.
Okay, all right. Okay, all right. That's good.
Does it make sense to go and have conversations? Like, he's going to go visit these people he hasn't seen in person in like a long time. Does it make sense to like reach out to some of these people and have conversations to set expectations before getting down there? Like even a plan, like, you know, who's going to be more calm or you know, who's got the higher emotional intelligence, like reaching out to them and strategizing on a plan on how to deal with the others in the area?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be dependent on Chase. You're going to have to, if there's like 2 or 3 people you think, oh boy, it's going to be really hard to interact with them. Yeah, I mean, that's a good idea. Maybe if you're closer to some other people, like, hey, how can we work together so we're like supportive of each other? But I think if you haven't seen these people since 2013, let's say, I mean, there's not a lot of deep vulnerability that probably needs to happen in these conversations. It feels like it's going to be a lot of shallow. I mean, do you have kids, Chase?
No. I like I said, it was like a two-sided thing. Like part of it was sarcasm, mostly just because like I know I probably won't have arguments with any of these people. Like I'm excited to like meet them and see them and like show them who I've become since like they knew who I was. Like that part of it is actually exciting for me. The part that I'm not excited for is like I've witnessed like the social media stuff unfold between them. Like I know that they have issues in and among each other, and like I hear about it if I talk to like my uncle or something like that. Like I know that there's stuff going on between those people. I'm so far removed that like if somebody had an opinion about me or what I was doing, I know that they just don't have a clue.
Oh, that would actually be exciting because you're just out of it, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to wade in the muck of it. No, okay. I can see why that'd be exciting. So it's reconnecting, but also not having to be in the drama.
Because at the end of the day, I'm going to be here again, not connected to the drama.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
There's another question, Dave. Any advice for those struggling to please everyone? The 4 Christmas syndrome.
Okay. So that question, I would wonder if and I don't know if this is you asking it, Sky, or if it's someone else asking, you're asking for someone else. But people pleasing is not a great thing. It's not a great thing to be a people pleaser because it's overwhelming. And it's not that like you're bad, whoever's asking, it's not that you're a bad person because you're people pleasing, but it just creates a lot of anxiety when people feel like they have to please everyone. So at some level, I think that there's kindness that can be done for Christmases. Like there's kindness that you can give to people, but at some point you have to determine what do you actually want for Christmas. And so I grew up with parents or with grandparents, 2 grandparents in the same hometown. And so one grandparents we'd go to for like a lunch, and then the next grandparents we'd go to for a dinner. And I don't know how my parents figured that out. I know in my own life now, Christmas Eve, my parents come to my house. Christmas Day, my wife's parents come to my house. And it wasn't always like that. I know that there was some kind of discombobulation about it when we were first the first couple of years of our marriage, but we're in like kind of a good pattern with it now. And so I think at some point, you would need to determine, what do you want, right? So Sky, is this a you question? I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, I think,
So,
well, that's where like the boundaries thing is inspiring. And I did a good job of that last year, because we have, you know, divorce and people are in new relationships, and there's time frames where like the kids have to switch. And so what I did last year was I hosted, and I wanted to do that again this year, but now I'm getting pushback and people are trying to take back the hosting. And so I'm struggling with, do I hold the boundary when I'm getting all of this, you know, like people go through all the reasons why they want to do it. And it's like, well, is it just easier to concede, or do I, you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, no, that's hard. I mean, especially when blended families come into play, it becomes, and a mom and dad absolutely can't be in the same room with one another, even though they were divorced 20 years ago. And it's just like, get over that drama already. But do you have siblings? Do you get along with your siblings?
Yeah.
So I think what could be useful is strategizing with your siblings to see what is best for all the siblings, because you guys as siblings, and this is to anyone that has divorced parents that are kind of struggling with how to do blended stuff. You guys as siblings did not ask for that divorce to take place. You guys that experienced that were kind of forced into it by these two people that couldn't figure their stuff out. And so you shouldn't, it's my opinion, you shouldn't suffer because of their inability to figure their stuff out. And so if you and your siblings think this is what's going to work best for us, I honestly think that's what should work best for you guys and probably everyone else. Because again, I don't have all the information, and so I'm shooting from the hip. I understand that. But if you and your siblings decide this is what's going to work for us, your parents get to decide yes or no. And if they decide no, then that's their choice. Like big adults, we get to make choices about things every day. And so if they don't like something, okay, they don't like it, and so they're going to have to make a choice based on that. And that's why when you try to please everyone, it gets like confusing and anxiety producing, because everyone wants what they want. And then it's unfair to the person that's trying to please everybody. And so I just think, why don't you and your siblings, if you guys are all in agreement with one another, do your thing and then extend invitations out to whoever. And if they don't want to come, I guess it's their loss, right? And again, what this could show is that there's a larger dysfunction of there's possibly parents who are entitled, or there's possibly people who are entitled and think it should be our way and we're going to make you suffer. That's not a loving relationship. But potentially that's a conditional love relationship. And so I don't know, there's just lots of different iterations of this, but I think based on what kind of the limited information here, I think getting with, and this is where boundaries would come in, like getting with your sibling and saying, hey, this is what I think we should do. Yes, I think we should do this. And then you're going to get pushback. I mean, it's guaranteed you're going to get pushback, because who do you and your sibling think you are? Well, we want to enjoy Christmas, and this is how we're going to enjoy it. Do you want to enjoy it with us or not?
Oh, now, I love that. That's powerful, man. I love it.
But I recognize that I'm not in that relationship. So it's easy for me to say that. Mm-hmm. Like I currently have a sister who I've blocked on my cell phone because of her outrageous texts to me, because her nephew or her son lives with me. I mean, it's right. So we all have complicated relationships. But I did send her a birthday card. So, right. She can't block a birthday card in the US mail. So, I mean, that's just kind of my general, that's my general advice.
I think that was good, man. Does anyone else have any questions on the call? You can just unmute yourself and talk if you'd like. Got a few minutes left here. Anyone else?
Now's your chance. Free therapy.
No kidding. All right, sounds like we're good. Well, again, David, thank you so much for being on. Really appreciate you. Here's Dr. David's information right here if you guys need or want to talk to him. I did actually have one question for you before we left, Dave. Is the TMS therapy, is that mainly for depression, or does that work for anxiety as well?
So you can do private pay. And so if you do private pay, they use it in Europe for anything like smoking cessation. It's used in the US for smoking cessation, addiction, anxiety, OCD, but insurance only pays for a diagnosis of depression.
Oh, got it.
So you can use it. Yeah, you can use it for anxiety. I think where you guys, so if you just Google TMS near me, then there's going to be several places in the Seattle area that do it. One thing I would add for those of you that enjoy podcasts, I do have a podcast that I do, but you'll be able to locate it if you go onto my Doc David website. There's a link. There will be a link to it.
Perfect. Awesome, man. Well, thanks for such great information. I got a lot out of it. Super excited to implement some of these things as well. So thank you so much for being on again, man. We really appreciate you. Happy holidays to you and your massive family with all those girls and one boy.
Thanks. Chase, yeah. Did you have a question?
So I know you were talking about light earlier, and I was just curious. So my girlfriend works in tanning salons, and I was just curious if you had an opinion on like red light therapy, because she's always talking about red light therapy. I don't know anything about it. I know a lot of people in Washington use it, or like will go to tanning salons and use like the red light beds. And I was curious if you knew anything about it.
Yeah, so I think that I personally haven't done that, but I think people do that. Like people will go to a tanning bed to soak up whatever is put out by those tanning beds. Again, it's like you want to try to always do natural light as much as possible, but the tanning beds will definitely feed your skin.
Right. Okay.
So yes. So you should go, Chase.
All right, I'll go.
Right. Thanks for having me, guys.
He's taken off already. He's already heading over there.
He's going to the red light. All right.
Well, thanks everyone for being on. Happy holidays.
I'll just add, if anyone has follow-up questions they want to ask me, you're always welcome to email me, and I'll answer questions.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for that. We appreciate you, man. Happy holidays to you and your family, and happy holidays to everyone else's family on here as well. Have a great day, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.